In the 7th year of our relationship, my fiancé posted a marriage certificate with another man. I looked at the photo and calmly told Laura that we were done. Her assistant, Felipe, called me, his voice filled with fake sobs. "Mr. Mendez, it was just a joke. Laura's been under so much pressure at work. Please don't be mad at her. It's all my fault." In the background, I could hear Laura's voice, dripping with a false concern she had never shown me. "Felipe, darling, don't cry. There's no need to explain to him. Where's he going to go? He's just a kept man." I didn't say a word. I simply took off my engagement ring, grabbed my acceptance letter to grad school, and booked a flight out of the country. I turned off my phone and began packing my belongings. Laura didn't come home that night. She finally stumbled in the next morning, reeking of alcohol. When she saw me on the couch, she barked, "Give me some coffee." Black. I glanced up but kept packing. Laura's eyebrows shot up as she stomped over. "Carlos, are you deaf?" Then she saw my suitcase. Her face turned pale and then crimson. "What is this? Are you seriously breaking up with me?" I didn't look at her. "Is that a joke?" My calmness seemed to enrage her. Her eyes turned icy, and she kicked my suitcase across the room. "Are you done with this little tantrum?" I looked up, a smirk tugging at my lips. "Tantrum? You're the one who married someone else." Laura rolled her eyes. "I told you it was a joke. Felipe is sick. He has cancer. He wanted to give his parents something, before, and he's been with me since he graduated, right? He's not just my assistant, he's my friend. I'm helping him. Is that so wrong?" She gave me a condescending look. "Look, after all this is over, we can get married again. Happy now." I held up a hand. "Save it. You have a husband. Talk to him." Laura's face hardened. "You know what? You're just heartless. You don't trust me. Maybe we shouldn't get married after all." Her voice dripped with a threat, but I didn't care. "Fine by me." Laura blinked, stunned. "You're serious?" I didn't answer. I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. As I passed her, she grabbed my wrist. "Think about this, Carlos. You're nothing without me." I looked into the eyes of the woman I had loved for 7 years. All I saw was ice. It hurt more than I had expected. I took a deep breath, forced a smile, and gently pried her fingers off my arm. "Best of luck to you both." I walked out, pulling my suitcase behind me. I heard her scream, "Carlos, don't you dare come crawling back. Let's see how a gold digger like you survives without me." A gold digger? I stopped and looked back, not because I regretted leaving, but to memorize the look of pure hatred on her face. As if to punctuate her anger, Laura slammed the door shut. The sound echoed through the hallway. Felipe was waiting by the curb, probably eager to play the comforting lapdog after our fight. He rolled down the window and smirked. Well, if it isn't Mr. Mendez. What happened? Did Laura finally kick you to the curb?" I shot him a cold stare and kept walking. He pulled his car forward, blocking my path. "You should have left a long time ago, old man. You never deserved her." I stopped and looked at his smug face. "You're right. Someone like you, a parasite who lives off her, is perfect for her." Felipe's face turned purple. I kicked him in the gut and kept walking. There's no need to be polite to trash. That night, I checked into a hotel. Lying in bed, memories flooded back. Laura had been my everything, but she was away to a fortune, and I was just a nerdy graduate student. We had met in college, but she was always out of my league. Like every other guy, I had watched her from afar, trailing her to classes, meals, everywhere. I even changed majors just to be near her. Until today, I had never regretted that decision. It was how we finally got together. Laura picked me as her partner for a group project. I was so excited I could barely speak. I stammered, I. She laughed, her eyes sparkling. "Sounds like you just proposed." Everyone else laughed too. I blushed, feeling like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But Laura just smiled and said, "Don't tease him. Carlos is brilliant. I'm the lucky one." After that, we started dating. We were the perfect college couple. I was a star student with job offers from all the top tech companies. My professors urged me to go to grad school, but I turned them all down for Laura. I took an entry-level job at her family's company. She fought with her family to be with me. I still couldn't understand how we ended up here. We had both wanted the same thing, a stable future together. But after Felipe showed up, everything changed. He was younger, more energetic, more entertaining. Our conversations shifted. Instead of sharing our days, she talked endlessly about Felipe. At first, I was jealous, angry. But after a few fights, seeing her dismissive attitude and hearing her accuse me of being petty, I knew her heart wasn't in it anymore. It wasn't Felipe that bothered me. It was Laura's indifference. Still, I proposed, hoping things would change after we got married. But that marriage license with her name and it shattered any remaining illusions. Looking out the hotel window, I felt a sense of peace. They say relationships have a 7-year itch. Maybe Laura and I had simply run our course. The next morning, I went to the office and resigned. It was a formality. My authority had been eroded for months. The HR director barely glanced at my resignation letter before approving it. Then she called me, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Such a shame, Mr. Mendez. We were all looking forward to your wedding." I wasn't fazed. "Don't worry," I said with a smile. "You'll be getting an invitation soon enough." I hung up. Before I could leave the building, Laura called. "Carlos, what the hell do you think you're doing? You were supposed to be at the contract signing this morning." I held the phone away from my ear and waited for her to finish her tirade. Then I said calmly, "You seem to have forgotten something, Laura. I resigned yesterday. You approved it." "Carlos," she shrieked, "don't push me. I may have approved it, but you haven't finished the handover. I can sue you for breach of contract." I wasn't buying it. "Nice try. If you'd actually read my resignation, you'd know I completed all the necessary paperwork." I hung up. I didn't expect to see Laura again so soon, but I did. As I left the building with my suitcase, I felt a mix of relief and pain. 7 years of my life were left behind in that apartment, in that relationship. I had tried my best to be everything for Laura, adapting, sacrificing, accepting scraps of affection while she made me feel like I was lucky to be with her. But now, it all felt so empty. I wanted to feel anger, but all that remained was exhaustion. As I turned the corner, I saw Felipe's car again. He was leaning against the door, looking at his phone with a smug smile. When he noticed me, he raised his eyes with that same air of superiority I despised. "Carlos, did you really walk out?" he said, letting out a short laugh. "I can't believe she finally got rid of you." I ignored him. He wasn't worth the energy. But before I could pass, he continued, You should know she never really loved you. You were just convenient. She always said she liked keeping you around because you were too much of a leech to leave." That stung. Not because I believed him, but because, on some level, it made sense. I stopped, took a deep breath, and stared at Felipe. "It's funny to hear that from you, Felipe. Someone who lives off her with nothing to offer but cheap flattery. If she thinks I'm a leech, what would she say about you?" His smug grin disappeared, replaced by a look of anger. Before he could respond, I kept going. She might have treated me like a burden, but at least I had the dignity to leave. You're stuck in this toxic mess, draining what you can because you know without her, you're nothing. I walked past him. Before he could reply, I got into a taxi and asked the driver to take me to the hotel where I'd stay for a few days while I sorted my life out. On the way, my mind lingered on Laura. Felipe's words echoed. Did she really see me as just convenient? Were the moments we shared just a facade to her? At the hotel, as I unpacked, a notification on my phone caught my attention. It was an email from the tech company I had turned down years ago. They wanted me back, offering an even higher position than before. I initially thought the letter was just some bureaucratic matter regarding my resignation, but when I opened it, I realized it was far more insidious. We regret to inform you that due to your unexpected departure, certain projects assigned to you are being reviewed for potential errors or negligence. You are requested to report to clarify these matters. Failure to do so may result in legal action. It was clear that Laura was behind this. She couldn't stand the idea of me leaving without consequences. She was trying to tarnish my reputation, maybe even ruin my career. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the rising frustration. I knew she was manipulative, but this was a new low. The next day, I decided to confront the situation head-on. I went to the office to address the so-called pending issues. When I arrived, the pitying and curious stares from my colleagues were almost suffocating. But the worst part was when Laura appeared, as impeccable as always, with a triumphant smile. "Carlos, what a surprise to see you here. I thought you decided to run away from your responsibilities," she said, her tone sweet but venomous. "I'm here to resolve any pending matters, but we both know this is just your way of trying to control me, Laura." Her smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "Control? Don't be ridiculous. I'm just ensuring the company doesn't suffer from your pull of departure," she replied coolly. "Of course," I shot back flatly. "As always, it's all about you, isn't it?" She narrowed her eyes, but before she could respond, Felipe entered the room. He looked visibly uncomfortable, but tried to maintain his usual arrogant posture. He whispered something in Laura's ear, and she seemed ready to explode. Something was wrong. Before I could ask what was happening, the company's director entered the room with a stern look. He held a tablet and handed it to Laura. "We received this morning," he said. "I thank you and your assistant and have some explaining to do." Laura took the tablet, her face draining of color as she looked at the screen. Her expression shifted from shock to anger. My curiosity grew, but I remained calm. The director turned the tablet toward me, revealing messages between Laura and Felipe, discussing how they manipulated company documents to cover extravagant personal expenses. "Laura, this is serious," the director continued. "The board has already been informed, and we've initiated a full audit. I suggest you contact a lawyer." Felipe began to stammer, but Laura silenced him with a sharp look. She tried to regain control of the situation, but the damage was already done. I stood up, gathered my things, and turned to her before leaving. "It seems you always thought you were in control, Laura. Maybe it's time to face reality. Good luck with that." I left the office without looking back. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine sense of relief. Whatever came next didn't matter. I was finally free of her. As I walked down the street, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an old colleague, offering help to start fresh in a new city. A new opportunity, a new life. I smiled, but deep down, I knew Laura wouldn't give up so easily. She still had cards to play, and this was just the beginning of what promised to be a final showdown. Days passed since I last set foot in the company. I was determined to move forward, but the weight of everything that had happened still lingered. The exposure of Laura and Felipe's fraud had shaken the company and destroyed Laura's false sense of control over me. Yet, I couldn't help but wonder how this fallout would affect my own future. I sat in the small hotel room, reviewing job offers from former colleagues, when my phone buzzed again. The number was unfamiliar. Hesitant, I answered. "Carlos, this is Mr. Moreira, the company's director. May I speak with you?" I paused for a moment. My initial instinct was to hang up and leave the past behind, but something in his tone suggested this was important. "Of course, Mr. Moreira. What would you like to discuss?" "I'd like you to come to my office. It's something we can't discuss over the phone." Reluctantly, I agreed, though my stomach churned with unease. Part of me was ready to confront the past, but another part feared what he might say. Arriving at the office, I noticed the atmosphere had shifted. There were curious, even respectful glances from my colleagues as I walked down the halls. Somehow, I had become a symbol of something greater. When I entered Mr. Moreira's office, he greeted me with a firm handshake and a smile that seemed genuine. "Carlos, first and foremost, let me say how deeply sorry I am for what you had to endure here. What Laura and Felipe did does not reflect the values of this company. Frankly, you didn't deserve any of it." I nodded cautiously, unsure of where this was heading. "Thank you, Mr. Moreira, but I imagine you didn't call me here just to apologize." He chuckled lightly, nodding. "You're right. I want to propose something. After conducting internal investigations, it's clear that many of the successful initiatives in this company were your ideas, not Laura's as she claimed. You were instrumental, even without receiving the credit you deserved." I was taken aback. I had always known I contributed significantly, but hearing it directly from the director felt surreal. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked, trying to hide my growing unease. "I want you to return to the company, Carlos. Not as a subordinate, but as the director of projects. Laura's position is now vacant, and frankly, you're the most qualified person to fill it." I sat there in silence for a moment, processing his words. Returning to that place, after everything that had happened, felt like an enormous leap. But it was also a chance to finally turn the tables once and for all. "And what about the team? The damage Laura caused?" I asked, carefully weighing the situation. "We're already addressing that. Laura and Felipe have been removed and are facing legal action. We want to rebuild trust, and we believe you can lead that effort. But of course, the decision is yours." I studied Mr. Moreira, trying to gauge his sincerity. After a moment, I nodded. "I'll accept, but on one condition. I want full autonomy to restructure the projects, choose my team, and ensure the company culture changes." He smiled. "Done." And so began a new chapter in my life. Returning to the company, now in a role with real power to implement change, wasn't easy. In the first few days, I faced skepticism from some and resistance from others still clinging to the old ways. But little by little, I started shaping the company to align with my values. My first decision was to bring in former colleagues I knew to be competent and ethical. I formed a team that shared my vision of integrity and innovation. Each meeting, each approved project was a step toward cleansing the toxic legacy Laura and Felipe had left behind. Laura, however, didn't take her downfall silently. I received notices from her lawyers, veiled threats, and even attempts at personal contact. She was desperate to regain control, but I no longer had room for her in my life. Every move she made only reinforced my determination to move forward. Months later, the company was unrecognizable. Revenue was up, employee morale was high, and we finally felt like we were working in a healthy environment. During a board meeting, Mr. Moreira made an announcement. "I'd like to congratulate Carlos for the exceptional work he's done as Director of Projects. Under his leadership, the company has not only recovered, but exceeded all expectations. Therefore, I'm pleased to announce his promotion to Executive Vice President." Applause echoed through the room, and I allowed myself a smile. It wasn't just about the promotion. It was about the journey that had brought me to this moment. That evening, sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, I looked out at the city lights and reflected on everything. Laura had tried to destroy me, but in doing so, she had only given me the opportunity to rebuild myself in ways I never imagined. I was finally free, not just from her, but from the insecurities that had kept me tethered to the past. As I sipped the last of my wine, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Laura. "I hope you're happy. You've ruined my life." I stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to respond. Finally, I deleted the message without typing a word. My victory didn't need to be explained. It was in the life I had built, the man I had become, and the future I could now truly call my own. Months into my role as Executive Vice President, the company was finally stable and thriving under my leadership. We had rebuilt trust with employees and the market. Yet one unresolved matter still lingered in my mind. Laura and Felipe, while they had been removed from the company, their actions had gone unpunished. Deep down, I knew I needed more than professional success to truly move on. I wanted justice. During one of my meetings with the board, I decided to raise the issue with Mr. Moreira. Mr. Moreira, I know Laura and Felipe's actions caused serious damage to the company, but so far, we've only addressed this internally. Don't you think it's time we formally report them to the authorities? I asked, keeping my tone professional. He studied me for a moment, considering my proposal. Carlos, you know this kind of action can be lengthy and complicated, not to mention it might bring negative attention to the company. Are you sure this is necessary? Yes, I replied firmly. The transparency and integrity we're promoting can't just be words. If we allow them to go unpunished, we're sending the wrong message to our team and the public. He sighed but eventually nodded. Very well, but I want you to be prepared. If we decide to move forward, we'll need your testimony. Are you willing to do that? I knew I was treading on dangerous ground, but my resolve outweighed any hesitation. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. A few weeks later, the formal complaint was filed. Laura was charged with corporate fraud and embezzlement, while Felipe was implicated as an accomplice. I still had doubts about Felipe's level of involvement. Perhaps he had been manipulated by Laura just as I once had. But at that moment, my desire for justice and perhaps a touch of vengeance led me to testify against both of them in court. When it was my turn to speak, I looked directly at Laura. She sat next to Felipe, both of them trying to maintain a confident facade, but it was clear they were cornered. Mr. Mendez, the prosecutor began, can you describe the impact of Laura and Felipe's actions on the company? I took a deep breath before answering. Their actions nearly destroyed the company's reputation. Entire projects were compromised, resources were diverted for personal luxuries, and employee morale plummeted. It was a time when we all doubted the integrity of the leadership, and it took months to repair. As I spoke, I saw Laura's face harden. Felipe, on the other hand, looked nervous, as though he wanted to say something but didn't have the courage. The prosecutor continued. And do you believe both of them were aware of the wrongdoing? Yes, I answered without hesitation. Laura was the mastermind behind it all, and Felipe played an active role as her accomplice. They worked together to cover up their actions, manipulating documents and deceiving the company's management. After my testimony, I left the courtroom with mixed emotions. Part of me felt guilty for including Felipe, as I wasn't entirely sure of his culpability. But another part of me knew that ensuring they both faced consequences was necessary to close this chapter of my life. Months later, the trial concluded. Laura was sentenced to several years in prison for corporate fraud, while Felipe received a lighter sentence for complicity, but still faced time behind bars. The news was widely covered, and the company gained even more credibility for taking such decisive action against internal corruption. Meanwhile, my life was heading in the opposite direction. With the company thriving under my leadership, I was invited to speak at conferences, share my experiences, and even mentor young professionals. My days were filled with meaningful work, and for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. One evening, as I was working late in my home office, a notification popped up on my phone. It was an email from Felipe's lawyer. He wanted to meet with me before Felipe was transferred to prison. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. The next day, I went to the detention center where Felipe was being held. He looked different, more subdued, without the arrogance he used to display. When we sat down, he got straight to the point. Carlos, I know you testified against me, and I'm not here to apologize. I just want you to know that while I made mistakes, not everything Laura said was true. Many times, I only did what she told me because I was afraid of the consequences. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to believe him, but another part was tired of excuses. Felipe, whatever the truth is, You made your choices. Now it's your responsibility to face them. He nodded, resigned, and I left, leaving the past where it belonged. Today, as I look at my life, I feel a profound sense of fulfillment. Not just because of professional success, but because I overcame the challenges and, most importantly, reclaimed my dignity. Laura and Felipe are now shadows of my past, while I continue to build a future full of opportunities. Sitting on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset with a glass of wine in hand, I reflect on everything that has happened. My quest for justice may have started as a desire for revenge, but in the end, what truly mattered was the peace I found. Not only did I survive what they did to me, but I emerged stronger, more resilient, and finally truly free.